Thank you all for coming out to this panel brunch. Gosh, this is the biggest crowd I've seen so far. I'm so happy you all are here. You guys have all come from so many far places to come together, and this panel is really special to me. It's interesting because whenever I get my panelists, they're like, what's the theme and what are we going to talk about? And I said, don't worry about it. It's a very casual conversation with filmmakers and my moderator. And we kind of just go with the flow and we open it up to the audience later. We really want to have an inspiring conversation with industry professionals that will hopefully inspire you and guide you after you leave this wonderful festival, and hopefully you have a great time at. I'm going to introduce our moderator, Jacques Telemaque from Filmmaker Alliance.
Thank you. Thanks for coming, everybody. I'm Jacques Telemaque with Filmmakers Alliance. It's a filmmaking community in Los Angeles. And if you're not in Los Angeles, we're coming for you. We'll get there eventually. But if you're in Los Angeles, we want you to be part of the cult. And our goal is to help you make films and or move your filmmaking lives forward. So we'd love to have you be part of that community. Right now we're just going to start. Actually, I don't even know what this panel's about, so we're going to figure that out as we go along. But we'll start by just going down the line and having the panelists introduce themselves and what they're doing in the filmmaking universe, and whatever. Let us know what projects you're working on that you're most excited about.
Starting with me.
Starting with you.
My name is, what is my name? Scott Steindorf. I own a company called Stone Village Productions that I've had for 25 years. I make movies, features, television. Station 11 on HBO now got shut down for this writer's strike. So I've been directing documentaries. I just finished 2 documentaries that I haven't shown streamers yet because I'm editing, called Understanding Autism, and one called ADHD Wired Differently. And you can see the trailers on TikTok. I just put them up yesterday.
Hi, my name is Shawn Hill, and I own Indican Pictures with my partner of 30 years. And we started this company, well, next February it'll be 20 years for us. And so the goal and the objective was to acquire films from the film festival circuit and give those filmmakers a chance for their films to be seen across all platforms. We're not genre specific. There's a lot of films out there that just don't get distribution, and we'd started out as filmmakers ourselves, moved into distribution, and that's where we felt the biggest need for viewing independent content. Check out our website, indicanpictures.com. I won't go on and on about which films I like, because I like them all. They all mean something to us. But yeah, that's it.
Hi, I'm Margot Sapel. I'm a film reporter at Movie Maker magazine. I write about all movies, but I especially enjoy documentary films. And at Movie Maker, we really love supporting emerging filmmakers. So send us a pitch anytime.
I'm Dan Perlman. I'm a filmmaker. I just wrote, directed, and starred in a Showtime comedy series called Flatbush Misdemeanors, which ran for 2 seasons, which was originally a short film that showed here in 2018. And now I'm working on other things. So yeah.
My name is Gregor Manian. I am the head of business development and film analytics at Slated. Slated is an online marketplace for financing and packaging independent films. We've been around since about 2010, 2012. We have executive produced, financed, distributed about 40 films. We have 10 films in post right now, including The Kill Room with Sam Jackson and Uma Thurman, and Our Son, which is going to be at Tribeca and just in June, and that stars Billy Porter and Luke Evans. Since we started our film finance department, we've delivered over $20 million to independent films. So if you need support packaging or financing your film, just let me know. We're a free platform, anyone can join, and we look forward to supporting all independent filmmakers, especially Mammoth Lakes filmmakers.
My name is Allison Amon, and I'm a producer. I am currently the president of a small creative advertising agency called Superconductor. We're owned by the Russo brothers and Justin Lin. I have a history of being the owner of a production company called Chelsea Pictures. For 20 years, we made commercials and other branded content. I've most recently produced a film called Seven Faces of Jane. It was financed by a car brand, Ford, and creative and directed by Roman Coppola, and then directed by 8 different filmmakers, including our star, Gillian Jacobs, that is now in distribution, can be seen on any of your platforms, Amazon, Hulu, etc. So I really focus more on the intersection between brand and entertainment and how to appeal to brands paying for incredible talent.
Cool, thank you. We're just going to jump right into how this illustrious panel's, what its relationship is to all you guys. I'm going to try and moderate from your perspective, but I know you're all at different levels in your filmmaking lives and coming from different perspectives. So formulate some questions for the question and answer period, but I'll start by, Dan, I'll ask you, like, what was your journey from here to Showtime? Showtime, right?
Yeah, Showtime.
As condensed as you possibly can.
Sure, yeah. So the script that ended up being a short, it was like we originally wrote it as a pilot, and then showed it to people, and they were like, I don't know what this is. And then we just cut anything that would be budget, so we're just left with 15 pages of scraps, and then just shot it piecemeal, and it was a mess. It was like, technically a mess, and we used 3 different cameras, and just, it was all, but it had jokes, and it had the sort of idea of it. So it started doing well in the film festival run, and then we made 2 other shorts that were not as strong, but it was like part of the same like universe. And so then the first one doing well, it got the attention of production companies, and then started working with one, and then went and pitched to networks where we were lucky to have a few offers, but Showtime was very on board for it. So that's the very broad strokes. Feel free to follow up with any specific thing, but that's the broad strokes version of it.
Is there any part of that journey that you think would have a universal insight for the filmmakers?
I mean, I guess I definitely think like, just us having that short and that proof of concept and it doing well in like a film festival run was like gave it that kind of like stamp of approval that it would not have had otherwise. Because we threw it online and nobody watched it and nobody cared, but it doing well in this context where you're playing it in a room and stuff was hugely helpful. So I think, you guys having that is already a big thing. And I think it being a comedy also, it helped it maybe stand out.
How did you connect with the production companies that you worked with? Or the one you worked with, I guess?
It was like, a few different ones saw it, and then it basically once one becomes interested, then others like you also. So it's kind of just getting that first one interested, and then nobody wants to be left out. So once you trick one person into thinking something's good, it's like easier to convince other people, because then they're like, oh yeah, that is good. It's kind of just tricking that first person, and then you can ride that momentum.
Cool. All right, since we're talking about production companies, let's jump to the producers. What is the relationship you guys, Allison, Millette, and you can jump in, either one of you. What is your relationship with filmmakers? How do you develop your relationship with filmmakers, and how do you, what is it you do with them to move their lives forward and accomplish your own goals?
Well, at Chelsea, it's actually was a really interesting story. Back in 2001, I think, it might have been 2002, I went to the Sundance Film Festival and saw a film called All the Real Girls by David Gordon Green, and I fell in love with him as a filmmaker. He had made an incredible first film as well, and as a part of the advertising community felt like his voice really needed to be shown, and that people were really looking for a sort of new style of advertising, a sort of more documentary style that maybe wasn't documentary but was very much styled that way. So we introduced him to a small agency called Hill Holiday in Boston and Crispin Porter in Miami, and he did a round of advertising for the anti-smoking lobby at that time, and it won like a gazillion awards. So it was called Truth. And that made myself and my partner realize that what we wanted to do was represent filmmakers in the commercial world. So we actively sought out people like Alex Gibney and Lauren Greenfield and other filmmakers who were making things that we felt like were truthful and had beautiful vision, and represented them at our company. So, I still, even though I don't own that company anymore, go to lots of film festivals, watch the work, pay attention to what is trending and what storytelling looks like, and I love talking to filmmakers, talented people, about the authentic ways that they tell their stories.
And you get them jobs where they make money.
I try. That's the goal.
And you, sir?
Well, I started as a real estate developer in my early 20s, and there was this topic called location, 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 and they will come to you. And so I've had that philosophy in my film business, is that if you have a great idea, actors come to you, directors come to you, talent comes to you. And so I started my career, and I still do it, I option or acquire the rights to books for movies. I was really lucky. My first book that I optioned was called The Human Stain, and it was one of those things where everybody came to me. And, Nicole Kidman, Anthony Hopkins, and I'm aging myself, but it was many years ago. And then I bought the next book called Empire Falls, and this guy called Paul Newman called me on my cell phone and said, I love the book and I want to play the lead. And so it's so important for filmmakers to have an authentic voice that's so different. This whole thing in Hollywood, well, make it like Die Hard or make it like this. Fuck that. Don't listen to anybody and keep your voice. And, Station 11 was a book that I optioned before the book came out, and I had 11 streamers bid on it. And ended up doing it with HBO. So I've just kept that philosophy, and it's listening. And she was basically a first-time writer. She had written another book that failed. And so if you're writing, just write original, authentic stories. And that's what sells. All the studios and networks will tell you, no, we want something like this, and they don't know. So to thy own self be true.
You work with, like you're buying these pretty high-profile properties,
Yeah.
or getting the rights to them anyway.
Yes.
And then you attach like sort of established writers. What is your process?
I've hired first-time writers. I've worked with first-time directors. I usually, with my movies and my shows, I finance it myself and then put it together before I go to the studios or the networks, and sometimes just make them. And most of the time I win, and sometimes I lose. But, it's what I love to do.
And when you're working with, first-time writer-directors or people emerging, such as the people in the room, how do you connect with them?
I listen to them because I want their story told.
Well, how they connect with you?
And how, well, they want support, and, most people think they're going to get final cut. You're never going to get final cut. And what I like about television, it's very collaborative. And so even some of these old school directors come to me and say, oh, I want to do it, but I want final cut. I want to listen to all the voices. You know, I just did this documentary on autism, and I tested it about 10 times and showed all my director and producer friends because I want input, because I don't know shit. You know, we're better as a team. We're better to collaborate with each other and listen. And I always say the key grip may have the best idea on the set.
So if they want to have an opportunity to work with you, they just reach out to you directly?
Sure. Well,
Wow.
my company, I have.
Oh. So you have
Well,
some space between you and...
yes, you can reach out to me. I actually am one of those people that return emails, so.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right, Slated. I was going to meet with you privately to find out what the hell is Slated all about. But you can just tell us all right now. Like, how do you help filmmakers?
Excellent. Well, we can still talk privately as well, but yeah. So I mean, we were founded with the idea that investors and talented filmmakers should be able to connect directly. Our founder was one of the co-founders of Palmstar, an independent financier, which is responsible for films like Hereditary, and he had financed several films in the independent film space, and he just saw that the system was somewhat broken, to say the least, and not very transparent. So we set up our platform that allowed filmmakers to list their films and match with investors. And we launched at Sundance in 2012 or something, and found pretty quickly that, you know, investors were interested, and filmmakers had great ideas, and capital did flow to independent films, but that actually both sides of the equation needed a lot more guidance and support. That if, you know, equity checks are just going into a bank account, there's still so many problems that need to be solved, and there isn't really an independent film infrastructure to solve those problems. And that issue has only gotten worse as the studio system has swelled, as the agencies have been increasingly incentivized to focus exclusively on the studio system. There's really no one to make sure that the client's best independent work gets packaged correctly, budgeted correctly, financed correctly, and then proper distribution. And it's not the agency's fault, it's just that they're just not built to service independent film the way that they were, you know, when independent film first started. So Slated really has become, over the past 10 years, the organization that, you know, makes it our business to provide that support to the filmmakers and to the investors. And we find that there's a lot of common pitfalls that we can help people avoid. And if you do that, you're doubling and tripling your chance of success. At least you're eradicating your chance of failure for foreseeable reasons like, oh shoot, we made the, you know, film for twice the budget we should have, or we didn't think about casting, or we didn't know we could have reached out to a great casting director, or we didn't understand pre-sales, or we didn't know how to structure the financing of the film. All of this is, you know, expertise that we can provide at Slated as a film finance marketplace, so that you have all those best practices going in, and that you remain in control. Because as I was talking about with Dan a little bit before the panel, you know, this is the moment. Like, the film festivals like this, in my opinion, are the purest moment in filmmaking. Every other stage of the process, that stage where you're thinking the idea, the stage where you're getting your friends to invest or show up and do free work, the stage where your film's out and it's not, you know, maybe quite what you hoped it would be, like everything on both sides of this sort of nucleus aren't quite as exciting. This is the purest moment. This is where the 3 years of your work, all, you know, the emptying of bank accounts, the racking up of credit cards, this is where it pays off. You get to be in a room with an audience and have that idea that you sacrificed a big portion of your life to, because you wanted to share it with people, land on audiences and have them react to that. And so what we try to do is ensure that there's success, not just in that moment, but that we can leverage that momentum from that moment and make sure that you're prepared going into that moment, so that you remain in control, because you're the ones that made the sacrifice. And if you're going to put all that sweat equity into a film, then you deserve to see all the upside. You shouldn't have to sign it off to somebody who never reports how your film is doing after it's released. You should be able to see that on, I think a daily basis. And we have distribution partners right now that when they release films through us, you can see that reporting across all platforms on how your film is doing financially on a daily basis. As I was talking about with Dan, that's sort of the least that filmmakers should ask for when they've spent 3 or more years working on a film, is they should know how the dang thing is performing. So we try to give you the P&A support that you need so people discover it, and then we try to make sure that you have the transparency once it's released, and you know that people are being upfront with you, because that's the thing that you sacrificed your life to make. So that's, did I get off track? I'm sorry, I got a little...
No, that was good. That was good, man. That was good.
I got a little preachy.
It's like religion.
No, that was good.
Do you have, not to put you on the spot, but do you have like an inspirational story that's relevant to the people in the room? Someone in this room going through your process without a lot of bells and whistles, without a lot of money, and successfully moving a project through you guys? Absolutely,
yeah. I mean, we truly have so many. I think one of the things that I love working at our company is we love all the films that we support. And we found that if you work with the community of independent filmmakers across, not just the US, but in all the countries where they exist, this is where the internet comes into play, right? Like, we can be talking to an incredible director from Colombia or from Egypt. They have ideas and experiences that I never would have come up with on my own, because I don't have those life experiences. I'm gonna sit here and pitch to somebody an idea that I want them to write. They have the life experiences that make those stories so rich and so authentic. Today, we have too many films, more shows and films than we can watch. And the stuff that stands out are those stories you've never seen before, told from an experience that is not your own, that you couldn't imagine in a million years. So the stuff that I'm most proud of are those films which are so authentic that I just never could have come up with on my own. And I'll list a few quickly, because I know I'm taking up a lot of time. But one of my favorite films is a documentary that we discovered in a festival like this called James Hemming's Ghost in America's Kitchen. It is about America's first master chef. A lot of people don't know that America's first master chef was a slave. He was Thomas Jefferson's slave, and he was wiped from history despite the fact that he invented macaroni and cheese, American ice cream, creme brulee as we know it. And because he was Thomas Jefferson's slave, Thomas Jefferson ended up getting credit until like a year ago. When I Googled who invented macaroni and cheese, it was coming up in Thomas Jefferson's Wikipedia profile. But because these filmmakers made this movie, they're actually the filmmakers, one of them is a chef, and he created a foundation dedicated to unearthing this history, and went through the archives, started educating people, made this documentary. It's not a very long documentary, but it interviews a number of different chefs, and because of that, people know who America's culinary founding father is. We were able to get them distribution, we were able to get them great reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, and history has been changed as a result. This film is now nominated for a James Beard Award in media, and these were filmmakers who, they knew how to do what only they could do. They knew how to do the thing I don't know how to do, which is bring this story to life. They sacrificed years of their life to do it. What they didn't totally have in their corner was a robust distribution solution. They didn't have support. They didn't have advocates outside of the film festival where we discovered it. And so we were able to add fuel to their fire. I guess I should stop there because I gave a lot of details, but we truly have dozens of stories like that where filmmakers have done all the hard work, and what we're here to do is just shine a spotlight on it and make sure that they remain in control.
Awesome, thank you. Margot. So I've known Movie Maker from its inception and its prior stewardship. Always been a big champion of truly independent filmmakers. But how does that manifest itself nowadays? What do you guys do for filmmakers? How do you work with filmmakers?
Well, we try to support as many independent films as we can and write about as many stories as we can. We also have an arm of our business called Movie Maker Production Services, where you can invest money and we'll double the value in services, including press. But I mean, I can speak to like how to pitch to us and how filmmakers can put their best foot forward via email. Definitely email is the way to go. Social media pitches often get lost. But basically, like, keep it concise.
And you're talking, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you're talking about pitching stories that would be in Movie Maker about their films.
Yeah, online or in the magazine. We do the magazine quarterly, so online is usually like a better outlet. But yeah, basically, some tips I can give for how to like get your email pitches seen by us is put the editor or reporter's first name in the subject line. It's like kind of a psychological trick to catch our eye, because I think the hardest part is getting us to open the email. And keep it concise and to the point, and just kind of tell us your story, some ideas of what a good angle for a story might be, and offer people on the filmmaking team to do interviews, and put your press kit in the first email so that we can find your photos later. Yeah, and don't be afraid to follow up, because like a lot of times I don't see an email until like the fourth follow-up. You're not being annoying. It's actually very helpful. So yeah, just keep trying. And also it helps to learn the editor or reporter's beat and kind of find out whether your film is something they would write about, because I think that can save you a lot of time by pitching to the right people who actually do cover your area or the genre of your film. Yeah.
Cool. Sean, I saved you for last because they have finished films, and you work with finished films.
That's all we work with.
And what is the process like typically? Like, do people come to you right off the bat, or do they try, more, higher profile distribution companies, and eventually, because nobody buys anything anymore?
Right.
How does it all work?
I can't say it's the same story for every filmmaker, but if I'm thinking about it like film festivals, you have your top tier, right? That would be your studios, and then your boutiques after that. So I'm thinking that filmmakers probably do try to work with the studios, and that's where the boutique distribution companies come in. And the reason that is because studios aren't going to work with 1,000 producers. They're just not going to. It's overwhelming. Even certain B2B buyers, they're not going to. I don't care if it's Apple or iTunes. They're not going to work with all these people. It's just too much work, right? So you have boutique distributors who can get you connected, and that simplifies it for the B2B people, business-to-business people, right? So as far as filmmakers, we do work with finished films, but I've had many filmmakers come to us. They haven't done their music clearances. They haven't done so many things. They've left it at the editing stage. They haven't finished their VFX. They haven't finished their green screen. We're a little different in that I'm not saying that we're not paper pushers, but because we started out as filmmakers, we have an entire method to do everything in-house. So if you need your film edited, color corrected, if you need visual effects, if you need key art and posters and trailers and social, we do everything in-house. We didn't start out that way. Over the 19 years, we started doing more and more of that in-house, even down to closed captioning for the hearing impaired. There's anything we don't do. We build DCPs for theaters. And the reason is it's so much more cost effective. When you're at this level, you're not dealing with a $30 or $50 million campaign, yet here you are with your independent film, and it's nice to be in a film festival, but when you're out in the marketplace, guess who you're competing against? You're competing against Paramount and Warner Brothers and Sony. It's just not fair, right? So we found a way to do everything in-house collectively to make our buyers happy, and make the filmmakers' budgets not spin out of control, so there's that opportunity to make money. Realistically, there are films that come out. I have sat and looked at films, I'm like, this is a winner, this is gonna make money. And then I look at the sales report and I'm like, oh shit, didn't do it. There's been other films where, I'll give you an example, I took this one movie with Scout Taylor Compton period piece called Lumber Baron. It was literally, it's a thriller, it's a nice film, it didn't offer anything, and in year one she was making money. I would love to say it's Scout Taylor Compton, but it wasn't. For some reason that film resonated. So it's a mixed bag as far as that goes, but I think what's helpful is to have distributors that can, that have had longevity, that can work with you directly. We always want to see your vision. I don't care if you've turned in key art or a trailer that you're just not happy with. It's better for you to turn it in because you all know this stuff intimately. Why? Because you've sat with it for 1, 2, 3 years. So we can go to you and kind of pick your brain to see where your brain is at, and then we can get it out to the mass market.
So, thank you. My next question is sort of along those lines. Like, what kind of landscape are these filmmakers existing in and or stepping into? Like, what can they expect from this point forward in their sort of filmmaking journey? I mean, everybody's coming from a different place, of course, and they're at different places. But in general, what does the landscape look like? Because there's all these streamers. It seems like there's all this opportunity, but it doesn't feel much different than it did 10 years ago, to me. But just tell me your thoughts, and I'd like everybody to weigh in. And if it's grim, that's fine, as long as it's constructively grim. That'd be great.
For the theatrical marketplace, because we do put out films theatrically, some of it is because it's required in the SAG contract, right? So they just have to be in a theater before they go into any other media. Sometimes it's because we have a cast that we know we can work with and they're going to support the film. And our publicists love it when we go, even if it's just one theater in New York or LA. Our publicist is BH Impact, a division of 42 West. You don't get any bigger than 42 West. So it sets the film apart and is able to get a little bit of eyeballs on it. So our objective when we're in the theatrical marketplace, especially post-COVID, break even, get that press out there, get the machine going. But it really does come down to the remaining platforms. So TVOD is still, working, whether it's DirecTV or Dish or Spectrum or Cox or Frontier or whatever the case may be. Of course, you're going to be on Apple and iTunes and Google Play and Vudu and blah, 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 blah. I'll be real frank with Hulu and Netflix. They're not buying smaller films. They are buying bigger films. I mentioned this, I think, last year. Our AVOD partners are really coming into play at this point. So that is Tubi, Pluto, and Zumo. Yes, they look free to the consumers, but right now they're paying us a flat fee. So we're going to go with that flat fee for that 30, 60, 90-day window instead of licensing it maybe to a Hulu for 2 or 3 years, locking up the film exclusively, when we can go to these AVOD platforms, make a lot more money, which is ultimately what you need your budget back, right? You need your budget back because you want to make your next film. Not to say that we're not still selling somewhat to TV, whether it's Starz, Showtime, HBO, but that's a secondary window for us. Airline sales. Airline sales are lucrative for us. They're lucrative globally. Filmmakers have to be open to that different cut because you can't be on an airplane sitting back next to a little kid and people getting decapitated, and, or there might be a lot of nudity. So it's even, but those are good sales for us. So each film is a little different. We will acquire films based on where we think we're going to make the sales. We can love a film, even if we love a film. If we don't think our buyers are going to take it, it would be foolish of us to pick it up if we don't think we can move it with our buyers.
So Margot, you have sort of a macro view of things, being a journalist. What does it look like out there for emerging filmmakers? And are people still self-distributing? Back in the day, you would do self-distribution. I don't hear a lot of stories about that these days. Is that still going on?
Yeah, it is. I have found, we've written stories about filmmakers that are doing that. I think, though, like some other people on the panel have said, you do need to find someone who's in your corner and to help you get press and get eyeballs on things. But you absolutely can do it yourself. I think it comes down to being inventive with your own marketing style. You can do social media campaigns, and TikTok is a great way to get eyeballs on things. I think it comes down to, if you have a really compelling story, that's what's going to catch a journalist's eye, in however they come across it. If we see something in your film, or even the story of how you made the film rather than what the film itself is about, if we see a way that, at Movie Maker, we care about, we're kind of like service based, where we want to write stories that help other filmmakers get their films made, or that teach other filmmakers something that they could maybe apply to their own craft. So at Movie Maker, if we hear of a story of a film that we think could be useful to other filmmakers, then that's what we're going to write about.
And what's it look like out there for independent filmmakers?
It looks good. I think there's a lot of like fear around, like the streaming industry is making things so nebulous, but it's positive. It's good. I think if you just keep trying and you just try new outlets to get your film seen, it's pretty positive.
I see you shaking your head. You have something to say?
I totally agree. Yeah, there's so many options out there now. Technology is moving so fast. Making a film is getting far less expensive. So it's really just about finding that guidance, because there's also a lot of noise and a lot of shysters, and I know it's very hard, especially, there's so many websites that claim to know what to do or are selling you something, and that's a tough business to navigate. So I think the challenge of today isn't that there aren't opportunities, it's figuring out which ones are reputable and transparent. But yeah, I second everything.
Cool. And Dan, you have sort of a Cinderella story. It may not feel like it to you, but from the filmmaker's perspective, it is.
Sure.
And so what would you say to the filmmakers in this room in terms of the possibilities that await them after this festival?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all, I do think it goes in waves. So even if it seems tough right now with a writer's strike and anything like that, I do think it all kind of comes back around. So I think, none of it would have happened if we hadn't made that stuff independently and continued to make other stuff that also was not as good or did not get any traction. But it was that kind of cumulative effect that I think earned enough people's trust. So, I just think the more that you make, it's like as soon as you do get any eyes on you, then you have this backlog of stuff. So for our short that we always wanted to make into a series, we didn't just have the short and the couple others in that world. We also had a full series Bible and everything of if we do go to series, that this is what we would want it to be. This is the full emotional arc of everything. So it was all kind of there. So as soon as we were able to have that conversation, it wasn't just you just saw everything that we were able to do. So I think the more you can have ready for that conversation, once anybody's open to it, the better you'll be.
So the consensus is that the independent film universe is healthy and relevant still. Does anybody violently oppose that thought? All right. Well, let's talk more about next steps for these guys. You're here, you got your film, and people are seeing it, and you're in a festival, and then what? What kind of from your lofty perspectives, what would you say to these filmmakers in terms of what they should be doing next in their filmmaking journey?
Well, I have a biased opinion. I feel that this is so. Everyone wants a film to be released in theaters. Distributors are very hesitant to release independent films in theaters because even though that's become less expensive, there's still a cost to it. And unless there's a P&A campaign, it's not likely that strangers are going to show up to see your film in theaters. There's always exceptions, of course, and there's grassroots marketing. But the festival run is your opportunity to be in a theater with audiences, and audiences that, by the way, are going to be much more supportive and much more there for you than just the general public in Chicago or Iowa or whatever who doesn't, who paid $15 for a ticket and has certain expectations. So this is your free marketing, is your festival run right now. What I generally, the pitfall that I see filmmakers fall into most often is that they wait for a film to be complete, they wait for a year to figure out what festivals they're getting into, then they wait for another year for the festival run to complete, and then they say, gee, I didn't get any offers to distribute my movie, what now? That is a situation we often find ourselves rescuing filmmakers from, trying to get interest at that point. It's much harder though, because distributors, as short-sighted as this may sound, then feel, well, this is a 2-year-old movie and no one else was interested, so I don't really know if I want to pick up, from a dead stop and try to make this movie a success. So what I can't say it enough that the best thing you can do if you're getting into festivals and you have all this free theatrical booking for you is to start having conversations with distributors as soon as possible. Ideally, you are securing the right distributor in the midst of or at the beginning of your festival run so that they can use all this free press to leverage it into the momentum of the film's release. So the goal would be to try to kind of like launch the film at the end of your festival premiere so that you have eyes on it, you've built up some press and momentum online, and then people are actually converting to click, to rent, to buy, to view on Tubi, etc. So have those distribution conversations as much as you can now. What we try to do is get you in conversations with multiple distributors at once so that you're not getting one scattershot offer and then wondering like, should I take it? Am I gonna get a better offer? You should get all the offers at once so you can compare apples to apples and figure out, who's the person who I trust the most, who seems most passionate about this, and then you're in charge. Then you get to pick the partner that you like best, and then they can start strategizing, putting press in, setting interviews at your next festival, and you can have a more successful release. So that's my opinion on it.
All right, next pearl of wisdom.
I'm going to follow up on what he said as far as the age of the movie and why it matters to distributors. It matters to us because our buyers are always telling us, don't bring us anything that is more than 2 years out. And the reason is because there are 7,500 to 10,000 independent films made a year. So how these buyers look at it, they have the budget, right? And they're going to spend that money on the studio films. Then whatever's left over, they're going to go to all the boutique distributors and say, what do you have? How can we round out the rest of our budget? If a film is 2 or 3 years old, they're just going to look at it and go, well, why should I pick this film that's 3 years old when I can go pick this other film that's kind of relatively the same, and it's only dated a year? And how they date it is by IMDb. And let me tell you something about IMDb. And I've dealt with them and their attorney and Lily and all that other stuff. If you play a festival, even though you're not making any money at the festival, it doesn't matter. The festival has charged the consumer money, whether by a pass or by a ticket. As soon as that film transacts money, that timestamps your film. So a lot of times I will tell filmmakers, leave your status on IMDb in production. Don't ever change it. Let IMDb go do the legwork that they need to do to figure out if you're in a festival, and then that will timestamp it. But he is right about one thing. You want to go to distributors earlier, not because of us, but because of the buyers, because the buyers know that they're going to have a whole nother crop of filmmakers the next year and the next year, so they're going to take the newest content that they can.
Go, Margot.
I have an example of something you can do to catch the eye of press, and I know that it can be so hard to get in the trades, like Variety, Hollywood Reporter. They don't always have a lot of resources to give to smaller films, but at smaller outlets like Movie Maker, we love to hear stories like, if you can sit down and think with your team, like, what did we do that was really inventive, or where we thought outside of the box to make this film, and tell us that story. Like, I had some filmmakers who sold a garage full of furniture to fund their film, and we thought that was really amazing. There was a filmmaker who told me that he and his girlfriend and cousin, who had all made the film together, they sold personal training programs on Instagram to fund their film. They told me that the cousin had actually donated some of his college fund to the film. We thought that was amazing, and like, those stories are something that like other filmmakers will see that we think, and it'll catch their eye and say like, oh my gosh, like, I never thought I could do something like that. But we love to hear stories of like how far you went to make this film and how passionate you are about it. Those are the stories that we enjoy.
And how do you feel about lying? Can we lie?
Don't lie.
You can definitely lie. 100% lie. Yeah.
Not to journalists. Don't lie to journalists.
Okay. Producers, what's your pearls of wisdom?
I mean, I love your story, Dan. I mean, I think that's incredible, is that, if you have an idea, to make a film, you're spending 2 years of your life. So if you have the idea, run the idea by 50 people to make sure you have an idea worthy of making a film. And then I love doing shorts or decks on your idea to attract the interest from money and distribution. But just remember, here's what I've learned in my escapades in Hollywood. Nobody reads anything and nobody watches anything. So it's a great idea to give them little snippets, because these executives, it's not that they don't have time, they just choose not to do it. So you have to give them one page, and I love the idea of doing trailers or little short films on your idea, and it shows the style of the filmmaking. It's just a real way in, because I agree with everybody that Silicon Valley, so I'm a little bit in tech, and all my tech friends are all talking about, we want to start a platform, we want to start a platform. So I think you're going to see a lot of these opportunities happen where you can get branded entertainment or different forms of, it's all going to be disrupted this year. Streaming is not going to be the same. Studios are all on their ass. Streamers are on their ass. So it's all going to be disrupted in a positive way, because they're going to need good content. So I think it's, Netflix, 90% of their shows fail, but their stock price goes up by that 10%. So they're not looking at it as an investment in your show. So I think that whole business model is going to change, and the money needs to go to the room, not to some people buying stock on Wall Street.
So what do they need to do to take advantage of that
Have a great idea. That's
Yeah,
different.
I also think, just to add on, like, one thing that really helped with our thing is we were able to show how creative we could be with zero resources. And one advantage we really had on the Showtime show is we were really left alone creatively. I mean, in part because they trusted us, but in part because we were so cheap comparatively that they didn't have to stress about it. They're worried about Homeland and Yellow Jacket and where their money is actually going. And so I think when you show you can have something good for very little, then they'll give you what for you is a lot, and for them is still next to nothing. So I think that's huge also.
Allison, do you have anything to offer the filmmakers?
I don't want to be the doom and gloom in the room, so I think I should probably just be quiet. But I think it's a really tough time right now in terms of finding financing for projects. But I also think it's an incredible cycle, and it'll be over soon. So you just use this time to develop great ideas and to have them in your back pocket. And I think if I were giving someone advice about the lack of traction that is going to happen in the next 6 or 7 months, I would say that develop your ideas, a little bit what you were saying, in this sort of multi-platform way, right? Don't just have a sizzle and a deck. Put out some little TikToks, do some interviews. Develop your ideas in ways that are incredibly creative and show off the work in ways that you wouldn't necessarily expect are the straightforward ideas. Yes. This is the time to have 4 or 5 great ideas in your back pocket that you have spent a lot of time thinking about and working out with your partners. Like, get all your pitches down, make them tight and beautiful. That's where I think people's energy needs to focus in the next 6 or 7 months, because it'll all come back. But right now, what I'm seeing from a brand perspective and financing perspective is a real a desire to wait. Is basically everybody is putting a lot of things on pause until they figure out what's next for the economy.
Sorry, you don't know which is going to be the thing for how your work gets seen. So I think, to Allison's point, any way you can get it out there, you don't know how someone is going to find it. So I think you don't necessarily want to wait and just be like, I'm just going to go this one avenue, because you don't really know.
Well, yeah, I'm sort of acting as if we're not in the midst of a writer's strike. It's obviously an interruption to the market as a whole. And so what I try to do for myself and caution everybody is to not change our long-term plan based on something that will resolve. Whether it resolves in 3 months or 6 months, we don't know. It is so important, though, as so many of you know, I've had the opportunity to speak with several filmmakers here. Whether or not you can jump to that next platform between, indie festival breakout to supporting yourself as a writer director on a streamer, that's what this strike is really about. But once this resolves, and of course we're all hoping that it resolves in favor of the writers and directors and now actors' demands, everyone on this panel is absolutely right. Financing is difficult. Scott, we say that all the time. No one reads anything. It is the one thing that's true is like death taxes, no one reads anything. And so because of that, proofs of concept like what Dan has made, that's really helpful. The way that I think about it is this. You need an incredible script, because if somebody should read your script, it needs to really be great. The way to get them to read the script is not to have an incredible script. The way to get them to read the script is to have something shorter that they can review, whether that's a pitch deck or a teaser, etc. The first 5 pages, the first 10 pages of your script, I'm sure you've heard that a lot, but it means everything, because most people are looking for the voice, the craft, the command over writing to determine whether or not they feel in sure hands to read beyond those 5 pages. So the best thing that you can do if you're looking to get an independent film made is, to have something visual. It's a visual medium, so show us that you can command that. And then make sure your first 5 to 10 pages are incredible. Get it read, get it tested from people you trust who are in the biz. And then make sure, the script really hangs together, and that by the time they finish it, they go, wow, this really stands out. This moved really fast. I'll take another script from this person any day, whether or not I can finance it. And when it comes to financing, the one sort of pearl of wisdom or piece of advice I would have is put yourself in the investor's shoes when you're looking to finance your next feature film, and think about trying to get that money back. That's what they're concerned about. I used to think investors want to support art. They really want their money back so they can go get another credit on another film. So, that's I won't go into great detail, but that's how to attract financing, even in markets like this where money is tight and money is expensive. They're still interested in being opportunistic and looking for a way to partner with the next big thing on their first or second feature so that they can cash in on your studio movie. And for those of you who have shorts, that can be your proof of concept for your feature script. So if you have a short programmed here, it's a good short. And as long as your script is incredible, the feature version, that's the thing to be working on. You can make those submissions and get some interest that maybe you wouldn't have been able to get otherwise.
Okay, well, my pearl of wisdom is about right here, right now. I may be a little biased because I run a filmmaking community, but I happen to think the greatest resource filmmakers have are other filmmakers. So, you're here together. You're all accomplished enough to be here. You should look around and see who you haven't met. Take some time to meet as many people here as you can. Make a strong connection. If you'd have made friends with Dan years ago, he'd be walking you into Showtime tomorrow. Right, Dan? But no, it works that way. So you never know what resources, what connections, what community each filmmaker brings to bear, and they can be incredibly valuable to you. So I know filmmakers in general are a bit introverted, whatever. I don't think this crowd is, but based on the bowling night last night. But make a point of reaching out and connecting with as many people here as possible. All right, we're going to roll right into questions. Who has questions? I know you must have them. I know they said a lot of brilliant things, but you raise first.
I was wondering, I had a question about you guys working with film directors from other countries.
Everybody hear the question? Working with film directors from other countries. The man with the accent said.
It's a great opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity. It's one of those things where The traditional studio system has some mechanisms for discovering incredible international filmmakers. You know, if you play at one of the big 5 international festivals, if you're one of that top 0.001%, then you find your way to the studio system. But what we're trying to take advantage of is the fact that there's still hundreds and thousands of other equally talented directors in Hollywoods around the world, because there isn't just one in the US, right? There's really burgeoning film industries. There's film industries, you know, in various countries that are older than Hollywoods, that have a longer tradition, that, you know, at some point in history were competing with Hollywood for the film capital of the world. So we try to work with filmmakers from every country, you know, just in terms of the market, and I'm sure Sean would agree, foreign language films, that are not in English, those are harder to sell. You're just automatically going to have a smaller amount of buyers in the US that will distribute it. But where we've seen success is working with international filmmakers with English language features, or features that are English and local language. So that would be my recommendation for international filmmakers to attract the attention. You probably already know that, but to attract the attention of US buyers is make a great, if you can, something with a little genre twinge to it, English language film, and you will find your way to the right people in the US.
I think as far as foreign language films, and I can't remember the name of the technology, that I just saw it a couple weeks ago, where they are able to take the foreign language and put it through a process to where they're speaking English. And I loved that technology, because I am picking up foreign language films. The trick for me, I have to be able to not rely on the language. I have to be able to rely on the visuals for the trailer, right? I don't want to necessarily announce it in the US that it's a foreign language film, because I know what Middle America's like. And so I want to entice them with the visuals, right? But this new technology that's coming down the pipeline, I guarantee you, all of us who were being a little bit shy about picking up foreign language films, I have 5 of them in release right now from various countries. Genre specific, because it's a little easier, right? But this technology is just going to blow the doors off, because it's going to make it so easy. After, take my card, I'll send you the link, watch it. It's mesmerizing. I was just blown away. So that's just going to open it up even more globally, because we're not going to have those translation issues anymore. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be expensive at the beginning, but.
Somebody else had questions over here? Go.
Yes, hi. It's about the screenwriters in the room, the people that come with a script to the festival. How do we position ourselves in your companies?
How do the screenwriters in the room connect with the?
Send one paragraph what the idea is about, and then we'll look at the execution of the script.
Anybody else have anything to offer?
Well, we're an open platform. Anyone can sign up for free at slated.com. You can list your project for free. You can match, if you're at a screen, as long as you have a feature screenplay, you can match with different producers and start conversations. I will say, we have 25,000 producers, 2,000 plus investors. They like vetted material, so we do have a script analysis component. If you score above a 70, you can match with almost everybody on the platform. If you score below a 70, you can use those, you can keep it confidential, use those notes, submit another draft. So that's our process. But yeah, for anybody who wants to see all the stuff that we do to support filmmakers, you just sign up for free at slated.com.
Yeah, you definitely want to get people to see your work and get the feedback that you can, and get it out there as much as possible. But like Scott was saying, just make it easy for them to want to read it.
So I'm like 22, and just the film that I made that I brought here is like, it was just some dishwashing, darkroom photography, like where I can help people with that kind of stuff. It's just like basically totally funded by just labor work, like landscaping and stuff. And I'm wondering what you would consider like the narrative reframing I should do now that I'm like, getting into the industry this way. Like what is the kind of cognitive alteration you need to make to get to thinking about money in a different way? It's just
So what's the question?
Yeah, what's the question? Yeah. We feel bad for your circumstances, but
I'm having a very good time, but
I know.
like what you would consider like I would assume that there's like this constant thing with artists and directors where we just want to make the thing we want to make and we'll stop at nothing to do that. How do we start to think of that in terms of something that isn't us losing, in order to get what we need? Like, do you think there's sort of a way that you see most of the directors coming through your production companies and whatnot, that they have a certain outlook that sort of pushes their projects?
I mean, most directors start as artists, and it sounds like you're an artist, so just create your art and keep it authentic.
I think it's really good to work on other people's films. So get yourself into the community, and think about a category that you like. I mean, I have experienced directors coming from all sorts of areas, whether it be cinematography or editors or, even wardrobe stylists have become directors. So if you go and work on sets, you meet other people who will become your friends and will become your support and will become the people who will work on your projects with you and who you can show things to and create that community. And especially if you're 22, this is an excellent time to go do that. Like, figure out on a set what you're good at, what you can do. You can start earning money by learning how to be a director in a bigger way, right? With a bigger set of people.
But if you're an artist, make peace with being poor.
Yeah.
That's the way it
To
is.
that point, I think that's absolutely true. Honor your origin story. I mean, in a time when there's so much backlash against nepo babies, be proud of how you started and tell that story, because that's something that as a journalist I would find very fascinating, and I would want to highlight that. Wow, you did all this hands-on work to make your movies, and now look how far you've come.
Yeah, this is a good time to clarify your vision. What is it you are bringing into the world, you specifically, that no one else can bring into the world? Your perspective, your aesthetic. It's a good time to do that.
It's also a lot of that stuff that you do to support yourself. I think in a lot of ways it's cool when it is not entirely separate from the stuff that you make. But I made this short one. I tutored for years to make money, and I had this other job. I temped for a few days selling mattresses at a Costco, and I was awful at it. But I met this one kid I met tutoring, and this other kid that his mom was just can you watch this kid for a minute? And he was just jumping on the mattresses and tried to help. I met these two kids, and then I made a little short with the two of them. So it's it can all feed off each other sometimes in cool ways.
Unfortunately, we only have time for one more question, but please know that it's this gentleman here. But please know that the panelists will be around for a bit, so if you want to accost them, do it nicely and respectfully. And it can answer your questions directly, okay?
Hi, I was wondering if any of you guys work with Criterion or a movie for releases, and how that whole process goes and what it means to be released on there.
I love Criterion. It took me so long to get a deal with them that I felt would really help my filmmakers out, because they have a certain lock on resources, let's just say platforms, that are very hard to get into. I tried in the first couple years, I tried then 10 years, and I recently called her up and she's like, let's do a deal, and I'm like, wonderful. And it started netting revenue to my filmmakers right away. So I love Criterion. They are specialized, but they have an entire back door that you wouldn't even know what they were doing. They seem like specialized product. They are specialized product and content, but outside of that, they have a deep reach behind the door.
They have an amazing library.
Yes.
It's just, but I'll tell you, I emailed them every month for 2 years because I wanted to use clips for educational purposes. Never heard back from them. Still haven't heard back from them. So they don't care. They sort of do their own thing, and I'll answer that when I feel like it.
It just took them 15 years to care about me, but now I feel cared about.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thank you, panelists, for being so awesome.